Hey everyone, welcome to the video. I'm making this video because my last video on Python Morse code encoding and decoding got over 600 views, which I thought was pretty cool. So I figured I'd make a follow-up video in which we make an even simpler Morse code decoder and encoder and give it some extended functionality, namely having the program take in plain text characters and then beep out their corresponding Morse code characters into the terminal. So I'm just going to give you a quick preview of this, and then we will dive right in and get coding. So first I'm going to activate the conda environment for my Morse code, and you don't have to do this with conda. You can just use pip. I'll walk you through it later in the video. But now we are going to run the program. So we're going to say python main.py, and then we're going to give it some plain text. So I'm just going to say SOS. And as you can see, it beeps out the Morse code for SOS into the terminal. So let's dive right in. So to start, we are going to come to my GitHub repo, to which I will provide a link in the description, and we are going to copy this JSON file. And this JSON file simply maps all of the Morse code characters to their corresponding Latin characters. So we're just going to copy all this. Control C, and then I have a new project right here. I'm going to make a new folder called Morse code, and this is going to be a Python package that we are going to be storing the bulk of the code in. So inside of that directory, I'm going to also create a new directory called resources, and inside of resources, I will create the morse.json file. So there we have that, and now we will copy all of that text in there. So now that that is done, we can create the main coder class. So in the Morse code directory, I'm going to create a new file called, just call it coder.py. You can name it whatever you want, but I'm just going to name it this. And I'm also going to create a utils file, and this will just have a few Python functions that we'll write to ease the programming of the rest of the program. So utils.py. Okay, so we are going to start with the utils coding. And first we're going to create a function to read a file. So I'm just going to say def read file, and then this will take in a file path. And we're going to say with open file path R for read as F, and then we are going to be return f.read. So this will read a file, whatever path to the file we give it. It will read the file and then return its contents. So that's simple. And now we're going to make a function to read the JSON file, our Morse code JSON file. So that is actually going to extend upon this function, but we need to first import the JSON library. So we're just going to say import JSON at the top of the file there. All right, so now for the read JSON function, we're going to say def read JSON, and this will also take a file path. And then we are simply going to return json.loads, and then we are going to read a file using that function that we just created, and we are going to pass in the file path. So this will simply read the file where the JSON is stored, and it will return its contents as a Python dictionary. So we just need one more function, and this function will be for us to translate the plain text characters back into Morse code. See, translating Morse code into plain text is very easy. We just have to, access the dictionary that that this function returns, and supply a Morse code character, and it will return the corresponding plain text character. But if we wanted to pass in a plain text character, that wouldn't work. So we have to make a function to help us out with that. So basically, we're going to get the dictionary key by the value instead of getting a value by a key. Now, normally you couldn't do this with a large dictionary because there could be repeating values, but in this case there's only one type of each value. So for that function, we're going to say def get dict keys by value, and this will take a dictionary, Python dictionary, and a target value. And now we're going to say for key value in dictionary dot items, we are going to check if the value is equal to the target value, and if so, then we will return the key. Now, all this is going to do is get all of the items in the dictionary, and it is going to get the key in the value of that item, and if the value is equal to the provided target value, then it will return the key. So for instance, if we passed in an A, then it would return dot dash for us. So that's pretty cool. So now we are finished with our utils file. So now we can move on and start working on the Morse code class. And for now, this class is just going to contain an encode and a decode function. So let's start with the encode function. Well, actually, first we got to make the Morse class, of course. Okay, so we are going to import the utils file that we just made. So from dot utils import, we're just going to import everything. And now we are going to make the Morse class. So class Morse. And now we are going to get the directory name in which this file is stored. So the absolute path of this directory. And this is going to be used to access files in the resources folder within the Morse code directory. So dir name is equal to os dot, oh, we have to import the os module. So import os. os dot path dot dir name, and then dunder file dunder, and that is the directory that will return the directory name of this file. And now we are going to get the path to the morse.json file, or we're just gonna let's see. So to do that, we will say Morse map file is equal to os.path.join dir name, and then the relative path to this file. So that would be resources slash morse.json. So this is the path of the, I should specify Morse map file path. I'll just say Morse map path. Okay, that is the name of the variable. So now we actually need to read this file, since this is just a path to that file. So we are going to say Morse map is equal to read JSON. This is where that JSON function comes in handy. And we are going to pass in the Morse map path. All right, so that is all we need to do for the setup of this class. This is going to be a static class, so we don't have to worry about an init function or anything like that. So now we are going to make the encode function. And since it's a static class, we're going to say at static method, and then def encode, and this will take in a string. I'll actually clarify that this is plain text. Okay, so now we are going to make sure that the passed in plain text does not have any trailing white space, and that it is uppercase, because the characters in the Morse map file are all uppercase. So to do that, we have to simply say plain text is equal to plain text dot strip, and this will strip any white space, dot upper, and that will convert it to uppercase. And now we are going to make a variable to store the encoded string. So encoded string, or I'll call it encoded text, is equal to an empty string. And then we're going to make a variable called words, and this will simply store each individual plain text word. So we're going to say words is equal to plain text dot split, and this is just going to be a space, since words in English are separated by a space. So this will be a list containing all of the words in the plain text. So now we need to loop over the words and then loop over the characters and translate them into Morse code. So we're going to say for word in words, and we're going to make a new variable called Morse word, and this is going to be equal to an empty string. Oops. And now we are going to loop over the characters in the word. So we're going to say for car or char, whatever you want to call it, in word, we are going to say encoded car is equal to get dict keys by value. Now this is the function that we just made, and we need to pass in the Morse map that we created up here and the character. Now the Morse map is the dictionary that we will be getting the key by value. So Morse, the name of this class, right? It is, yeah, Morse. Okay. Morse dot Morse map, and then the character. So this will effectively encode a plain text character into Morse code, since we are passing in the Morse map dictionary, which is basically this JSON file, and the character. So if we pass in A, it will encode to dot dash. Very simple. So now we just append the encoded character to the Morse word variable. So we're going to say Morse word plus equals encoded car plus a space. That is because when you are writing out Morse code, each character is separated by a space, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to tell where one character begins and another one ends. Okay, so that's all very good. And once we finish with that loop, then we simply append the Morse word to the encoded text. So we're going to say encoded text plus equals Morse word plus 2 spaces, because each Morse word is separated by 2 spaces. Okay, so now we are just going to remove any trailing spaces from the encoded text and then return it. So we are just going to say return encoded text dot strip, and this will just remove any spaces. Okay, so we are done with the encode function, and now we can actually test this out. So outside of the Morse code directory, I'm just going to make a new file called main.py, and we are going to import the Morse class over here. So we're going to say from Morse code .coder import Morse. Okay, so we're going to say code is equal to Morse.encode, and then we pass in the plain text. So I'm just going to pass in an A, and then we are going to print the code. Okay, so now we should see dot dash printed out into the terminal here. So if I say Python main.py, we do in fact see dot dash. Now if I do S, this should be 3 dots, and we get 3 dots. So the encoder is working quite well, actually. So now we need to create the decode method. And the decode method is going to be very similar to this one, except we're passing in the Morse code character and getting the plaintext character in return. So let's start with that. So we're going to say static method again, because it's a static method and it does not rely on a class instance. And we're going to say def decode. This is going to take in a Morse string. So first we're going to make a variable to store the decoded string, much like we did with the encode method. So decoded text is equal to an empty string. And now we are going to again split the words in this string, except we're going to split based off of 2 spaces. Up here we split 1 space to get the words. Each word in Morse code, when you're writing it out, is separated by 2 spaces. So we're going to say Morse words are equal to Morse string dot split 2 spaces. Okay. So now we are going to loop over the Morse words for Morse word in Morse words. And then we are going to get the Morse letter from the word. So if the word was, say, SOS, so that would be dash, dot, dot. We would want to break this up into 3 groups, or 3 items in a list, where the first item is the first 3 dots, the second item is the dashes, and the last item is the last 3 dots. So we're just going to say Morse letters is equal to Morse word dot split, and we're splitting it based off of a space this time. And now we are going to say for Morse car in Morse letters, and this is where we actually decode the Morse character into plaintext. So the decoded car is equal to Morse dot Morse map, and we're going to pass in the Morse car as the key. It's that simple, because the Morse map is simply a Python dictionary which has all of the keys set as Morse characters and the values set as plaintext characters. So if we pass in dot dash again, we will get A in return, because A is the corresponding value to dot dash. Okay, and then after that, we are simply going to append the decoded car to the decoded text variable. So we're going to say decoded text plus equals decoded car. We don't need to add spaces to it. Tab 9 thinks that it's so smart it's going to add spaces to everything now. Okay, so that is all we need to do for the characters, and now we're just going to make sure we add a space in between each decoded word. So we're going to say decoded text plus equals a space. Okay, and this will decode all of the words in the Morse code string and store them in the decoded text here. And then we are going to return the decoded text. So return decoded text, and we are going to strip it again of any white space, just because I think it's a little bit cleaner. So there, the decode method should be done. And let's go back over here to main.py and test this. So if I instead say plain text is equal to morse.decode, and I pass in ... which should be s, and we print the plain text, and we run the program down here, we get s printed out onto the screen. So the decoder is done, and this basically does everything that my last video on Morse code showed you how to do, except it's much simpler, and there's a lot less code, which is always good. The goal is to write as little code as possible and make it as simple as possible. So this works pretty well. Okay, so that pretty much wraps it up for this video. In the next video, we will explore how to implement the code needed to beep out the Morse code into the terminal, just like this. Alright, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as the Morse code said, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.